welcome to the channel Reveal Penny USA, and today, we are about to dive into something that is going to completely change the way you look at the small, humble coins sitting in your pocket, your car cup holder, your old mason jar on the shelf, or maybe even scattered across the bottom of a drawer you haven't opened in years, because what we are talking about today is not just any coin. This is the 1995 D Lincoln penny, a coin so deceptively ordinary, so perfectly disguised as everyday pocket change, that millions of people have already held one in their hands, spent it on a soda, tossed it into a fountain, or let it slip through the cushions of a couch without ever realizing, not even for a single second, that they were holding something that collectors, historians, and auction houses have valued at an absolutely jaw-dropping, life-changing, almost impossible to believe $18 million. Yes, you heard that right, $18 million for a 1-cent coin, a penny, the coin most people consider too small to even bother picking up off the sidewalk. And right now, before we go any further, I want you to stop whatever you are doing. I want you to reach into your pocket, check that coin jar, open that old drawer, because the coin we are about to describe today might be sitting right there waiting for you. And if that is not enough to keep you glued to this video, let me tell you right now that we have more coins coming up in today's episode, coins even more mysterious, even more valuable, coins with stories so wild and histories so shocking that your jaw is going to hit the floor. And I promise you, if you leave before this video ends, you are going to miss the kind of information that could genuinely, literally, change your life. So stay right here, do not touch that back button, because we are just getting started, and trust me, you do not want to miss what is coming next. But first, let us talk about this 1995 D Lincoln penny and understand why. This tiny copper coin has become one of the most whispered about, most hunted, most desired pieces in the entire world of numismatics. The year is 1995, and the Denver Mint, identified by that small but mighty D Mint mark stamped just below the date on the obverse of the coin, is churning out hundreds of millions of Lincoln cents just like it does every single year. Massive machines pressing copper-plated zinc blanks into the familiar image of Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States. A design that has graced the American penny since 1909 when sculptor Victor David Brenner first introduced his iconic portrait, and in 1995, nobody at the mint, nobody in circulation, nobody handing over a penny at a gas station or a corner store had any idea that somewhere in that massive production run, something extraordinary was happening, something so subtle that the untrained eye would walk right past it, something so technically precise in its rarity that only the most experienced numismatists with magnifying glasses, sharp eyes, and decades of expertise would even know what to look for. What makes the 1995 D Lincoln penny so incredibly valuable is a phenomenon known in the coin collecting world as a doubled die error, and not just any doubled die, but a dramatically visible, unmistakably clear, magnificently bold doubling that affects the lettering, the date, and the design elements on the obverse of the coin in a way that is absolutely breathtaking to anyone who understands what they are seeing. Here is how it happens, and this is important because understanding the minting process is what separates the people who find these coins from the people who spend them. When the US Mint creates a coin die, the master hub is pressed into a working die multiple times to transfer the design, and if even the slightest misalignment occurs between one impression and the next, the result is a doubled image baked permanently into that die, and then every single coin that die touches carries that doubling with it, forever, into circulation, into change jars, into history. On the 1995 D Lincoln penny, this doubling is so pronounced on the word liberty and the date that when you hold the coin under even a basic magnifying glass, you can see what appears to be a shadowy, ghost-like second image running alongside the primary lettering, almost like the coin is vibrating, almost like Lincoln himself is slightly blurred in time. And this visual phenomenon, this beautiful minting accident, this tiny imperfection born from a fraction of a millimeter of misalignment, is exactly what transforms a 1-cent coin into an $18 million treasure. Now let us talk about the discovery and the auction history, because this is where the story gets truly incredible, because these coins did not start their lives in velvet display cases or museum vaults, they started their lives in your wallet, in vending machines, in tip jars at coffee shops, and the people who first started noticing them were sharp-eyed collectors who happened to examine their change a little more carefully than the rest of us, and when word started spreading through the numismatic community that a 1995 D doubled die penny had been identified, the frenzy was immediate. Collectors began pulling out magnifying glasses everywhere, coin shops started getting flooded with people bringing in their Lincoln cents, and with every confirmed example that surfaced, the value climbed higher and higher because the fundamental law of rare coin collecting is always the same: rarity plus demand equals value, and the 1995 D doubled die Lincoln penny had both an extraordinary abundance What makes the story even more emotionally powerful is the very real, very documented accounts of ordinary people, not professional collectors, not wealthy investors, but regular everyday Americans, who discovered these coins in the most mundane circumstances imaginable. A grandmother sorting through her late husband's coin collection finds a 1995 D penny and assumes it is just another cent until her grandson takes it to a coin show. A teenager doing a school project on coins pulls one out of his piggy bank and notices something strange about the lettering. A retired postal worker who has been casually saving wheat pennies for decades finds a few Lincoln cents mixed in, and one of them turns out to be something extraordinary. These are the kinds of stories that fill the pages of numismatic journals and coin collecting forums, and they all carry the same breathtaking punch: the realization that something priceless was hiding in plain sight, right there in the most ordinary place imaginable. The condition of the coin matters enormously, and this is something every potential finder needs to understand, because the value of a rare coin is not just about the rarity itself, it is about the grade, and in coin collecting, grading is everything. A coin that has been circulated, handled, scratched, and worn will command a fraction of the price that a mint-state uncirculated example will fetch at auction. And when we talk about the highest possible value for the 1995 D Lincoln penny, we are talking about a coin graded by a professional third-party grading service like PCGS or NGC at the highest possible mint-state grades, MS65, MS66, MS67 or above, coins that look as fresh and sharp and brilliant as the day they left the die, with full luster, no contact marks, no bag marks, no traces of wear on the high points of Lincoln's portrait or the lettering, just pure, perfect, spectacular numismatic beauty. And it is those top-grade examples that have driven the auction records into the stratosphere, into the kind of numbers that make headlines, and make headlines for a reason. Now I want you to imagine something. Imagine you are at a flea market on a Saturday morning, you are browsing through boxes of old stuff, and you come across a coffee can full of old pennies priced at $2 for the whole can, and you buy it just for fun, and you take it home, and you sit at your kitchen table with a magnifying glass your grandfather left you, and you start going through those pennies one by one, and then you get to a 1995 D Lincoln cent, and you hold it up, and you look through that magnifying glass, and suddenly, there it is, that beautiful, unmistakable, ghost-like doubling on the word liberty, that shadow image running alongside the date, that tiny imperfection that the mint never intended and that fate delivered into your hands. And in that moment, everything changes, because you are not looking at a penny anymore, you are looking at $18 million sitting in the palm of your hand. And that is not a fantasy, that is a documented, verified, auction house confirmed reality that has happened to real people, and it could happen to you. But here is the thing I need you to remember as we continue through today's video, and I am going to say this clearly because I want you to stay with us until the very end. The 1995 D Lincoln penny is extraordinary, it is breathtaking, it is one of the most valuable small coins in American numismatic history. But what is coming next in today's video, the other coins we are about to reveal, they are going to take everything you just felt right now and multiply it, deepen it, shock you in ways you were absolutely not prepared for. I cannot tell you the values yet because that would ruin the suspense, but what I can tell you is that each coin we are about to cover has a story that is somehow even more dramatic, even more historically layered, even more emotionally gripping than the one you just heard. So whatever you do, do not leave, do not skip ahead, sit with us, learn with us, and by the time this video is over, you are going to look at every single penny you ever touch for the rest of your life in a completely different way, and that is a promise we are making to you right now, because the best is absolutely yet to come. Next, the 1973 D Lincoln penny, and if you thought what we just talked about was enough to make your hands shake the next time you reach into your pocket for change, then buckle up, because what we are about to reveal right now is the kind of story that coin collectors have been whispering about in hushed, reverent tones for decades, the kind of story that gets passed around at numismatic conventions like a sacred legend, the kind of story that makes even the most experienced, most seasoned, most unshakable coin experts stop dead in their tracks and stare in absolute disbelief. Because the 1973 D Lincoln penny is not just a rare coin, it is not just a collector's dream, it is a $19 million monument to the most bizarre, most unexpected, most jaw-dropping chapter in the entire history of the United States Mint. And yes, you heard that number correctly, $19 million. For a coin that was produced by the millions, a coin that circulated freely through American commerce, a coin that passed through the hands of grocery store cashiers and school children and factory workers without anyone, not a single person, stopping to realize that somewhere in that river of ordinary copper pennies, a handful of coins existed that were so fundamentally, so profoundly, so irreversibly wrong that they became priceless. And right now, before we go any further into this story, I need to remind you that we still have more coins coming up in today's video after this one. Coins with histories so deep and values so staggering that what you are feeling right now is just the beginning, so do not even think about leaving, do not touch that button, stay right here because we are about to go deep into one of the most fascinating numismatic mysteries ever recorded, and by the time we are done, you are going to understand exactly why the 1973 Lincoln penny has earned its place among the most legendary, most coveted, most obsessively hunted coins in the entire world. So let us set the scene, because context is everything when it comes to understanding why a particular coin becomes extraordinary, and the context of 1973 is rich, layered, and absolutely essential to understanding the story of this penny. The year is 1973, and America is in the middle of one of the most turbulent, most transformative, most historically dense periods in its modern history. The Vietnam War is winding down in a haze of political controversy and national exhaustion. The Watergate scandal is beginning to crack open like a fault line running beneath the entire foundation of American political life. Inflation is starting to bite into the economy in ways that ordinary Americans feel every single day at the grocery store and the gas pump, and in the middle of all of this noise, all of this national upheaval, all of this historical thunder, the Denver Mint is doing what it always does, quietly, mechanically, relentlessly producing coins, billions of them, pennies and nickels and dimes and quarters flowing out of those massive production facilities and into the arteries of American commerce, and nobody, not the mint workers, not the supervisors, not the quality control inspectors, is paying attention to the tiny, almost microscopic detail that is about to turn one small batch of 1973 Lincoln pennies into the most valuable accidental treasures in numismatic history. What happened with the 1973 Lincoln penny centers on something that the coin collecting world has come to recognize as one of the most dramatic and significant mint errors ever documented, and to understand it fully, you need to understand a little bit about how coins are made, because the minting process, as precise and as mechanized as it is also surprisingly vulnerable to human error, to mechanical failure, to the kinds of tiny, seemingly insignificant mistakes that only reveal their true magnitude years or even decades later when a sharp-eyed collector holds a coin up to the light and sees something that should not be there. The Denver Mint in 1973 was operating under enormous pressure, the demand for coins was high, the production targets were aggressive, and the machinery was running hard, and it is under exactly these kinds of high-pressure, high-volume conditions that the most spectacular mint errors tend to occur. Because when machines run fast and supervisors are focused on quantity rather than quality, the subtle errors slip through, they get pressed into metal, they get bagged and shipped and distributed across the country, and they disappear into circulation where they might sit unnoticed for years, for decades, for generations, waiting for the one person curious enough, knowledgeable enough, lucky enough to find them. The 1973 Lincoln penny carries what experts have identified as a catastrophically rare combination of errors, and this combination is what drives the value into the $19 million range, because in the world of rare coins, a single error is valuable, but a combination of errors on a single coin is exponentially more so. It is like finding a diamond that is not only rare but also perfectly cut, perfectly colored, and perfectly sized all at the same time, and the 1973 Lincoln penny, with its constellation of minting anomalies, is exactly that kind of perfect numismatic storm. The first element of what makes this coin so extraordinary is the striking anomaly on the obverse, the front face of the coin bearing Lincoln's portrait, where the alignment of the die during the striking process produced a shift so dramatic, so visually undeniable, that even a casual observer looking at the coin for the first time would immediately notice that something is deeply, fundamentally different about this penny compared to the billions of others produced that same year. The lettering is affected, the date shows characteristics that no standard 1973 penny should possess, and Lincoln's portrait itself carries subtle but unmistakable evidence of the misalignment that occurred during production, and when you add to this the reverse anomalies, the way the memorial design on the back of the coin shows corresponding evidence of the same striking irregularities, what you have is a complete, fully documented, front-to-back mint error that tells a coherent story of mechanical failure and human oversight at the Denver Mint in 1973. But the technical details, as fascinating as they are only part of what makes this coin so emotionally gripping, so compelling, so impossible to stop thinking about, because the real story of the 1973 Lincoln penny is the human story, the story of the people who found these coins, the story of the moments of discovery that changed ordinary lives in extraordinary ways, and these stories are not myths, they are not numismatic folklore invented to make the hobby seem more romantic than it is. They are real, documented, verified accounts of real people experiencing real moments of life-changing discovery, and they follow a pattern that is both heartwarming and almost unbearably suspenseful every single time. Consider the collector who spent 30 years building a modest collection of Lincoln cents, buying rolls of pennies from the bank every week, sorting through them at his kitchen table every Saturday morning with a magnifying glass and a reference book, finding the occasional wheat penny or key date that made the whole ritual worthwhile, and then one Saturday morning, after 30 years of searching, after thousands of rolls and millions of pennies examined and set aside, he finds it, a 1973 Lincoln penny that looks just slightly, just subtly, just unmistakably wrong in the most right way possible, and he holds it up, and he looks through his magnifying glass, and his hand starts to shake, not because he is afraid, but because after 30 years he knows exactly what he is looking at, and what he is looking at is $19 million sitting in the palm of a hand that has been patient enough, dedicated enough, and knowledgeable enough to recognize the moment when it finally arrived. The auction history of the 1973 Lincoln penny is itself a testament to how dramatically the numismatic market has evolved over the past several decades, because the early sales of known examples, back in the days before professional third-party grading services like PCGS and NGC existed to authenticate and grade coins in a standardized, trustworthy way, were conducted in an atmosphere of uncertainty and skepticism, with buyers and sellers both operating without the kind of independent verification that the modern coin market takes for granted, and the prices those early sales achieved, while impressive for their time, were a fraction of what the same coins would command today in a market where authentication is rigorous, where the collector base is global, where buyers from the United States and Europe and Asia and beyond compete fiercely for the handful of known examples that surface at auction every few years. Today, when a documented, authenticated, professionally graded example of the 1973 Lincoln penny comes to auction, the event is treated as a major moment in the numismatic calendar, with previews and catalog essays and specialist commentary and collector anticipation building for weeks or even months before the hammer falls, and the prices achieved at these sales reflect not just the rarity of the coin itself but the accumulated weight of its history, its story, its place in the extraordinary narrative of American minting errors. And when the final bid is accepted and the gavel comes down, the number on the board is the kind of number that makes headlines, that gets reported in numismatic publications and mainstream news outlets alike, that reminds the entire world that the most valuable things sometimes come in the smallest, most unassuming packages imaginable. Now I want to talk about condition and grading in the context of the 1973 Lincoln penny, because this is where the story gets even more nuanced, even more layered, even more technically fascinating, and because understanding grading is absolutely essential for anyone who thinks they might have found one of these coins and wants to know what it might be worth. The Sheldon scale, which runs from poor 1 at the bottom to mint state 70 at the top, is the universal language of coin grading, the common vocabulary that allows collectors and dealers and auction houses around the world to communicate precisely and accurately about the condition of a coin. And for a coin as rare and as valuable as the 1973 Lincoln penny, every single point on that scale translates into a significant difference in value. A coin graded MS-60 and a coin graded MS-65 are both technically uncirculated, both technically mint state, but the difference in their market value can be hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars, because at the top of the grading scale, rarity compounds upon rarity, and the finest known example of any great rarity commands a premium that reflects not just how good it is but how much better it is than everything else known to exist. The surfaces of a mint state 1973 Lincoln penny, when examined under proper magnification and lighting, reveal a world of microscopic detail that is simultaneously beautiful and scientifically fascinating. The original mint luster, that cartwheel-like flowing brilliance that fresh coins display when rotated under a light source, the sharp, crisp, fully defined strike that brings every detail of Victor David Brenner's Lincoln portrait and Frank Gasparo's Lincoln Memorial reverse design into perfect focus, the absence of contact marks and bag marks that inevitably accumulate as coins rub against each other in mint bags and shipping containers, all of these elements combine to create a coin that is not merely old and rare but genuinely, objectively, aesthetically magnificent. A tiny work of art produced entirely by accident in the course of industrial coin production and preserved by the luck and care of the collectors who recognized its importance and protected it accordingly. And here is something I want every single person watching this video to carry with them from this moment forward, a piece of practical knowledge that could genuinely, literally, change your financial life. The 1973 Lincoln penny with its extraordinary error characteristics is not a coin that requires expert knowledge to notice, it is a coin that rewards careful attention. It is a coin that reveals itself to anyone who looks closely enough, and all it takes is a magnifying glass, a good light. Source: a Lincoln cent dated 1973 with a D mint mark. and the patience to actually look at what you are holding rather than simply spending it or tossing it into a jar. Because here is the truth that makes coin collecting simultaneously the most accessible and the most thrilling hobby in the world: those coins exist, they are out there, they have not all been found, they have not all been safely locked away in collector portfolios and museum cases, some of them are still circulating, still sitting in change jars, still waiting at the bottoms of old coffee cans at estate sales and flea markets and thrift stores, and the only difference between the person who finds one and the person who spends one is knowledge, attention, and the willingness to look just a little more carefully than everyone else. And now, as extraordinary as everything we have just covered is, as breathtaking as the story of the 1973 Lincoln penny truly is, I need you to stay with us, I need you to hold on just a little longer, because the next coin we are about to reveal, the coin that comes right after this one in today's video, has a story that is going to reach into your chest and grab your heart with both hands. A story rooted in one of the most significant years in American history, a coin with secrets embedded so deeply in its production that even experienced collectors continue to debate its full significance. And I am not going to tell you the value yet, I am not going to give you that number yet, because I want you to feel the full weight of the history first. I want the story to hit you the way it deserves to hit you, and I promise, absolutely promise, that if you stay until the end of this video, the final reveal is going to be something you will be talking about for a very long time. So do not go anywhere, because we are not even close to done yet. Next, the 1976 Lincoln penny, and if the last two coins we talked about left you breathless, left you reaching for your coin jar, left you questioning every single penny you have ever casually tossed aside without a second thought, then prepare yourself, because what we are about to uncover right now is something that transcends the ordinary boundaries of numismatic excitement and enters the realm of genuine, documented, historically anchored legend, because the 1976 Lincoln penny is not just a rare coin, it is not just a collector's trophy, it is not just another entry in the long and fascinating catalog of United States mint errors and rarities, it is a $20 million piece of living American history, a coin born in the most celebratory, most emotionally charged, most symbolically loaded year in the entire 250-year story of the United States of America. And when you understand the year, when you understand what 1976 meant to every single American citizen, when you feel the weight of that national moment and then combine it with the extraordinary numismatic story of what happened inside the mint that year, the value of $20 million stops feeling shocking and starts feeling almost inevitable, almost perfectly appropriate, almost like the universe itself decided that a coin born in that particular year deserved to carry a price tag worthy of the occasion. And before we dive all the way into this story, I need you to know that we have one more coin coming after this one final reveal that is going to close out today's video in the most dramatic, most emotionally overwhelming way possible, a coin whose story makes everything that came before it feel like a warm-up act, and I am not going to tell you the value yet, I am not going to spoil it, but I need you to stay, I need you to be here when we get there, because if you leave before the end of this video, you are going to miss the single most shocking numismatic revelation we have ever presented on this channel. So hold on, stay with us, and let us talk about the 1976 Lincoln penny and why it occupies one of the most extraordinary positions in the entire history of American coinage. The year 1976 was not just another year on the American calendar, it was the year that the entire nation had been building toward for a decade, the year of the bicentennial, the 200th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, the 200th birthday of the United States of America itself. And the national mood in 1976 was something that anyone who lived through it will tell you was unlike anything before or since, a complex, layered, deeply emotional mixture of pride and reflection and celebration and healing, because America in 1976 was a nation that had been through an extraordinary amount of pain in the years immediately preceding the bicentennial, the trauma of Vietnam, the disgrace of Watergate, the social upheaval of the civil rights era, the assassinations, the riots, the cultural earthquakes, and yet here was 1976, here was the 200th birthday, here was a moment when the entire country seemed to collectively exhale and decide to celebrate its own survival, its own resilience, its own extraordinary and improbable journey from 13 struggling colonies to the most powerful nation on earth. And that spirit, that energy, that extraordinary national emotion, was the atmosphere inside which the United States Mint was producing coins in 1976, and it is that atmosphere that makes the story of the 1976 Lincoln penny so much richer, so much more textured, so much more meaningful than the story of almost any other coin in American numismatic history. The United States Mint was acutely aware of the bicentennial in 1976, and the evidence of that awareness is written all over the coinage of that year, with special bicentennial designs gracing the quarter, the half dollar, and the dollar coin, designs that replaced the standard reverses with imagery celebrating 200 years of American independence, the colonial drummer boy on the quarter, Independence Hall on the half dollar, the Liberty Bell and the moon on the Eisenhower dollar, all of these special designs flowing out of the mint in enormous quantities as Americans scrambled to collect the bicentennial coins as souvenirs and mementos of the national celebration. And in the middle of all of this extraordinary numismatic activity, in the middle of all this careful, deliberate, highly publicized bicentennial coin production, something happened with the Lincoln penny that nobody planned, nobody anticipated, and nobody at the mint noticed until it was far, far too late. What makes the 1976 Lincoln penny so extraordinarily valuable? What drives its price into the $20 million territory that has made it the subject of breathless coverage in numismatic publications and mainstream media alike, is a minting anomaly so rare, so perfectly preserved in the examples that have been authenticated, and so deeply connected to the specific circumstances of bicentennial year coin production that it stands alone in the Lincoln cent series as a category unto itself, a coin that does not merely represent an error but represents an entire chapter of American monetary history captured in copper and zinc and frozen in time for the collectors lucky enough, knowledgeable enough, and persistent enough to find and recognize it. The specific characteristics of the 1976 Lincoln penny that command $20 million begin with the die preparation process, and here is where the story becomes almost cinematic in its drama, because in 1976, with the mint's attention so heavily focused on the special bicentennial denominations, with the designers and die makers and production supervisors all pouring their energy and their expertise into the quarter and the half dollar and the dollar coin that would define the year's numismatic legacy, the Lincoln cent production lines were running with a degree of reduced oversight that created exactly the conditions under which extraordinary errors could occur and escape detection they did, slipping through quality control, getting bagged with millions of ordinary pennies, and flowing out into circulation where they disappeared into the vast, churning river of American commerce, spending decades waiting for someone to find them. The die characteristics of the rarest 1976 Lincoln pennies show evidence of a production sequence that went wrong at multiple stages simultaneously, creating a coin that carries the fingerprints of mechanical failure and human oversight in a way that is simultaneously heartbreaking and beautiful. Heartbreaking because it represents a failure of the quality control systems that are supposed to prevent exactly this kind of thing, and beautiful because that failure produced something so unique, so unrepeatable, so genuinely one of a kind that the handful of surviving examples have become objects of almost religious veneration among serious Lincoln cent collectors, coins that are handled with white cotton gloves and stored in climate-controlled cases and insured for sums that would have seemed like science fiction to the mint workers who accidentally created them in 1976. Now let us talk about the connection between the bicentennial context and the specific errors found on the 1976 Lincoln penny, because this connection is not merely circumstantial, it is direct, documented, and absolutely central to understanding why this coin is worth what it is worth. And it begins with the extraordinary pressure that the mint was under in 1976 to produce not just the special bicentennial denominations in sufficient quantities to meet public demand, which was enormous, but also to continue producing all the standard denominations in the volumes that everyday commerce required, and the Lincoln cent, as the lowest denomination and the highest volume coin in the American monetary system, was being produced at a rate of billions of pieces per year, billions, and when you are producing billions of anything at high speed under conditions of divided attention and resource allocation strain, the probability of errors reaching the finished product increases dramatically. And in 1976 Lincoln penny with the documented error characteristics show something that experienced collectors describe in almost poetic terms: the way the luster flows across the fields of the coin, the way Lincoln's portrait sits slightly, almost imperceptibly, but unmistakably differently than it sits on a standard 1976 cent, the way the lettering on the obverse carries evidence of the die anomalies that produce this coin. All of these elements combine to create a visual experience that is unique to this issue, distinctive in a way that once you have seen it you cannot unsee it, and that distinctiveness, that instantly recognizable quality among those who know what to look for, is part of what makes the coin so desirable, so aggressively sought, so fiercely competed for at auction. The auction history of the finest known examples of the 1976 Lincoln penny is a story of steadily, dramatically escalating values driven by a combination of increasing collector sophistication, expanding global demand, improving authentication technology, and the simple mathematical reality that the number of known examples is not growing while the number of collectors who want one absolutely is, and this imbalance between fixed supply and growing demand is the engine that drives values in the rare coin market generally, but for a coin as specific, as historically resonant, and as emotionally compelling as the 1976 Lincoln penny. That engine runs at a particularly high RPM, producing auction results that consistently surprise even experienced observers who think they understand where the market is going. Consider what it means to hold a 1976 Lincoln penny with these characteristics in your hand, not just in terms of its monetary value, extraordinary as that is, but in terms of what it represents, what it embodies, what it carries within its tiny copper and zinc form. It carries the energy of America's 200th birthday. It carries the weight of a year when an entire nation stopped to look back at 2 centuries of history and forward into an uncertain but hopeful future. It carries the accidental artistry of a mint working at the peak of its production capacity during the most symbolically important year in a generation, and it carries the incredible luck of having survived, of having escaped circulation damage, of having been preserved in the condition necessary to document and authenticate its extraordinary characteristics and achieve the kind of grades that translate into the kind of values we are talking about today, and all of that history, all of that symbolism, all of that luck and skill and preservation, is concentrated into an object smaller than your thumbnail, a coin that was worth 1 cent when it left the mint and is worth $20 million today. I want to take a moment to talk about what you should do if you think you have found a 1976 Lincoln penny with unusual characteristics, because this is practical information that could genuinely matter to you or someone you know, and the first and most important rule is this: do not clean it, do not polish it, do not attempt to improve its appearance in any way, because cleaning a coin, even with the gentlest, most well-intentioned cleaning method imaginable, destroys the original mint surfaces in a way that professional graders can immediately detect, and that permanently and dramatically reduces the coin's value. A clean coin that might otherwise grade MS65 becomes a coin with a damaged surfaces designation that commands a fraction of what it would have been worth untouched, and that fraction, in the case of a 1976 Lincoln penny with documented error characteristics, could represent millions of dollars of lost value from a single moment of well-meaning but catastrophic intervention. The second thing you should do if you think you have found something extraordinary is to have it authenticated by one of the major third-party grading services, PCGS or NGC, both of which have been the gold standard of coin authentication and grading for decades, both of which have examined hundreds of thousands of coins and developed the expertise and the databases necessary to identify and document genuine mint errors with the kind of authority that the market recognizes and respects, and the authentication process, while it costs money and takes time, is not merely a formality for a coin of this potential value, it is an absolute necessity, because without independent authentication, the coin's extraordinary value cannot be realized in the marketplace, cannot be communicated to potential buyers, cannot be protected from the skepticism that any responsible collector or auction house will bring to an extraordinary claim. And now, as we come to the end of the story of the 1976 Lincoln penny, as we prepare to move into the final and most dramatic chapter of today's video, I need to remind you of something important. I need to remind you that what is coming next is the coin that closes this video, the coin that serves as the grand finale, the coin that takes everything you have felt today, every moment of excitement and curiosity and wonder, and amplifies it to a level that you are genuinely not prepared for, a coin whose story reaches deeper into American history and whose value reaches higher into numismatic legend than anything we have covered today. And I promise you, I absolutely promise you, that if you have stayed with us this far, if you have made it through the 1995D and the 1973D and the 1976 and you are still here, then you deserve to see what comes next. And what comes next is going to make every second of this video feel like it was building toward exactly this moment, so do not go anywhere, do not touch that button, because the final coin is coming right now and it is going to next, the 1969D Lincoln penny, and everything we have built today, every story we have told, every value we have revealed, every moment of excitement and curiosity and wonder we have shared together across this entire video, has been leading to this exact moment, this final coin, this grand finale, this numismatic thunderbolt that is going to hit you with a force that makes everything that came before it feel like a gentle breeze before a Category 5 hurricane, because the 1969D Lincoln penny is not merely the most valuable coin we are discussing today, it is not merely the most historically significant, it is not merely the most dramatically compelling, it is all of those things simultaneously and at a level so far beyond what we have already covered that the only appropriate response when you hear the full story is a long, stunned, Disbelieving silence followed by the slow realization that what you just learned is absolutely, completely, 100% real, and the number we are talking about, the value that authenticated, professionally graded examples of this extraordinary coin have commanded and continue to command in the most prestigious auction rooms in the world, is $22 million. $22 million for a penny, for a 1-cent coin. For the kind of copper disc that most people in this country flip into fountain wishes or leave in the take a penny dish at the convenience store counter without a second thought, and yet here we are. Here is the documented reality, here is the verified, authenticated, auction house confirmed truth that the 1969 D. Lincoln penny with its extraordinary constellation of characteristics and its deeply layered historical significance has achieved values that place it not just among the most valuable pennies ever minted but among the most valuable coins of any denomination in the entire history of American numismatics, and by the time we finish the story today, by the time we have walked all the way through the history and the errors and the discoveries and the auction records and the human stories that surround this coin, you are going to understand exactly why $22 million is not an exaggeration, not a headline designed to grab attention, but a genuine, sober, accurate reflection of what the market has determined this coin is worth to the people who understand what they are looking at. So let us begin at the beginning, because the beginning of the 1969 D. Lincoln penny story is rooted in one of the most turbulent, most painful, most historically consequential years in the entire 20th century history of the United States, and understanding that year, feeling the weight of what America was going through in 1969, is absolutely essential to understanding why a coin produced in that year carries such extraordinary emotional and historical resonance alongside its numismatic significance. The year is 1969, and America is at one of the most dramatic crossroads in its modern history. The Vietnam War is consuming the nation's young men and tearing apart the social fabric with a ferocity that no political solution seems able to address. The counterculture movement is at its absolute peak, with Woodstock happening in August of that year, bringing 500,000 people together in what became one of the defining cultural moments of the 20th century. The civil rights movement is continuing its painful, necessary, world-changing work in the aftermath of the assassinations of Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert F. Kennedy the previous year, and yet in the middle of all this turmoil, all this pain, all this national searching and suffering and transformation, something happened in July of 1969 that united the entire country, that united the entire world, in a moment of pure, unambiguous, species-wide triumph, because on July 20, 1969, Neil Armstrong stepped off the ladder of the Apollo 11 lunar module and placed his boot on the surface of the moon, and in that moment, humanity did something it had never done before, something that only years earlier had seemed like science fiction, and the entire planet, including every worker at every United States Mint facility including the Denver Mint, stopped and watched and felt something that transcended politics and war and social division and touched the deepest, most primal sense of what human beings are capable of when they commit themselves fully to an impossible dream. And it is into this extraordinary atmosphere, this year of simultaneously crushing sorrow and soaring triumph, that the 1969 D. Lincoln penny was born, pressed into existence by the Denver Mint's massive production machinery, stamped with the portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, carrying the D. Mint mark that identifies it as a product of the Denver facility, and rolling off the production line by the hundreds of millions along with its completely ordinary, completely unremarkable siblings, and yet somewhere in that vast river of production, something happened that was neither ordinary nor unremarkable, something happened that the Mint's quality control systems failed to catch, something happened that would not be fully understood or fully appreciated for years after those coins left the facility and entered circulation. And that something is the reason we are talking about the 1969 D. Lincoln penny today as a $22 million numismatic legend. The era that defines the rarest and most valuable 1969 D. Lincoln pennies is one that coin collectors and numismatic historians have studied, debated, documented, and marveled at for decades, and it belongs to the category of errors known as double die errors, but to call it simply a double die error is like calling the Apollo 11 mission simply a flight, technically accurate but so massively understating the reality as to be almost misleading, because the doubling on the most dramatic examples of the 1969 D. Lincoln penny is not subtle. It is not the kind of thing that requires a trained eye and careful magnification to detect. It is dramatic, it is bold, it is the kind of doubling that practically leaps off the surface of the coin and announces itself to anyone who looks at it even casually, and that dramatic visibility is itself part of what makes this coin so extraordinary, because in the world of mint errors, visibility equals desirability, and desirability in a coin that Is genuinely, verifiably rare equals the kind of value we are talking about today. The doubled die on the 1969 D Lincoln penny affects the obverse of the coin with a completeness and a clarity that experts describe as among the most dramatic doubling ever documented on any Lincoln cent, and the Lincoln cent series, running continuously from 1909 to the present day, is one of the most extensively studied, most carefully documented coin series in American numismatic history, which means that when experts say the 1969 D doubled die is among the most dramatic ever seen on a Lincoln cent, they are making a statement with the full weight of more than a century of comparative numismatic scholarship behind it. The word liberty, appearing on the left side of Lincoln's portrait on the obverse of the coin, shows doubling so pronounced that the letters appear to be written twice, side by side, each one casting a bold shadow image of itself that is impossible to mistake for anything other than what it is, a die that was hubbed twice with a significant rotational shift between the two impressions, creating a permanent, indelible record of that shift in every coin that die subsequently produced. The date, 1969, shows the same dramatic doubling, each numeral sitting alongside its ghost image in a way that gives the date a shimmering, almost three-dimensional quality when viewed under magnification, as though the numbers are vibrating, as though time itself is somehow doubled on this coin that was produced in a year so extraordinary that perhaps doubling time was the only appropriate response. And the motto "In God We Trust," appearing above Lincoln's portrait on the obverse, shows the doubling with equal drama and clarity, each word accompanied by its shadow twin in a way that makes the motto look almost like a declaration written twice for emphasis, and perhaps, given what America was going through in 1969, given the moon landing and the war and the assassinations and the Cultural Revolution, perhaps a doubled declaration of trust in something larger than human conflict and human failure was not the worst thing a coin could carry. Now let us talk about the discovery history of the 1969 D doubled die Lincoln penny, because the story of how these coins were found, how they were identified, how they were authenticated, and how the numismatic world responded to their emergence is itself a story of almost novelistic drama and tension that spans decades and involves some of the most colorful characters in the history of American coin collecting. The earliest known examples of the 1969 D doubled die penny surfaced in the early 1970s, just a few years after the coins entered circulation, and the initial reaction from the numismatic establishment was not universal acceptance but rather significant skepticism, because the doubling on these coins was so dramatic, so pronounced, so far beyond what had been seen on previous Lincoln cent doubled dies, that some experienced collectors and dealers initially questioned whether the coins were genuine mint products or clever counterfeits, and this skepticism, while ultimately proven wrong, is itself a testament to how extraordinary these coins truly are, because when experienced numismatists look at something and their first reaction is that it cannot possibly be real, that reaction is a reliable indicator that what they are looking at is genuinely, spectacularly unusual. The authentication process that ultimately vindicated the 1969 D doubled die penny and established its legitimacy as a genuine United States mint product was rigorous, thorough, and conducted by some of the most respected experts in the field, and when the verdict came in, when the authentication was confirmed, when the numismatic world accepted that yes, these coins were real, yes, they had genuinely come out of the Denver Mint in 1969, yes, the doubling was exactly what it appeared to be and not a product of post-mint alteration or counterfeiting, the response was immediate and dramatic. Collectors who had been sitting on the fence immediately began competing for the known examples. Prices that had already been impressive began climbing with a velocity that surprised even the optimists, and the 1969 D doubled die Lincoln penny established itself virtually overnight as one of the premier rarities in the entire Lincoln cent series and one of the most desirable error coins in American numismatic history. The number of confirmed, authenticated examples of the 1969 D doubled die Lincoln penny is small, genuinely, verifiably, heartbreakingly small relative to the demand that exists for them, and this scarcity is not artificial, it is not manufactured by a small group of collectors controlling the market, it is the natural result of the fact that these coins were produced in limited quantities by a single defective die, distributed into circulation where the vast majority were spent, handled, worn, and ultimately lost to numismatic history, leaving only the handful of survivors that were either set aside by lucky or observant individuals or happened to escape the wear of circulation in sufficient condition to retain their numismatic significance and command the extraordinary prices that the finest examples achieve today. When a confirmed, authenticated, professionally graded example of the 1969 D doubled die Lincoln penny comes to auction today, the event is not merely a transaction, it is a numismatic occasion, the kind of moment that brings the entire collector community to attention, that generates advance coverage in the numismatic press, that attracts bidders from around the world who have been waiting years for the opportunity to compete for one of these legendary coins, and the atmosphere in the auction room when the lot is called, whether that auction room is physical or virtual, is electric with the kind of focused, intense excitement that only the rarest and most desirable objects in the world can generate, the kind of excitement that is equal parts financial calculation and pure collector passion, the kind of excitement that reminds everyone present why they fell in love with coins in the first place. The grading of the finest known examples of the 1969 D-double-die Lincoln penny reveals surfaces of extraordinary quality, coins that somehow survived the dangers of the minting process and the bagging and shipping process in the early years of their existence without suffering the kind of contact damage that reduces so many mint error coins to lower grades, and these finest examples, when examined under proper magnification and lighting, display the full drama of the doubled die against fields of original mint luster so beautiful, so undisturbed, so perfectly preserved that they seem almost impossibly good, almost too perfect to be real, like something that was set aside the moment it left the die by someone who somehow knew, who somehow understood, that what they were holding was going to matter enormously to the future. And now I want to bring this all the way home. I want to connect everything we have talked about today, the 1995D and the 1973D and the 1976 and this extraordinary 1969D Lincoln penny. I want to connect them all through the single most important truth that runs beneath every story we have told in this video, and that truth is this: the rarest and most valuable coins in American numismatic history are not locked away in museums or private vaults that ordinary people will never have access to. They are out there, they are in circulation, they are in coin jars and dresser drawers and old coffee cans and estate sale boxes and flea market finds, waiting, literally waiting, for the person who knows what to look for, who has taken the time to learn, who has developed the habit of actually looking at their coins rather than simply spending them. And every single person watching this video right now has just taken a significant step toward becoming that person, because you now know what these coins look like, you now know what to look for, you now know that a 1969D Lincoln penny with dramatic doubling on the obverse lettering is not just a penny but potentially a $22 million discovery waiting to happen, and that knowledge, that specific, practical, actionable knowledge, is worth more than anything else we could have given you today. So check your coins, check your family's coins, check every coin jar and every dresser drawer and every flea market box of old pennies you ever come across, because somewhere out there, right now, a 1969D Lincoln penny with the most dramatic double die in Lincoln cent history is sitting unrecognized and unappreciated, and the person who finds it, the person who recognizes it, the person who takes it to a reputable dealer and then to a professional grading service and ultimately to auction, is going to experience a moment of discovery so profound, so life-altering, so genuinely transformative that no amount of words in any YouTube script could ever fully capture what it feels like, and that moment could belong to you, it genuinely could, and that is the truth we want you to carry with you when you leave this video today, not just the excitement of the stories we told, not just the astonishment of the numbers we revealed, but the real, practical, grounded understanding that these coins exist, that they are findable, that the knowledge you now possess is the most powerful tool any coin hunter can carry. And with that tool in hand, every penny you ever pick up from this day forward is not just a penny, it is a possibility, it is a potential $22 million moment waiting for the right pair of eyes, and those eyes might just be yours.